So before we start today's episode, I've got a thought-provoking question that I want both of us to have an answer for by the end. And that question is, if you escaped everything but still felt trapped inside your own mind, are you really free?
Mm.
We're going to be touching on an impactful album today that I think that question is themed throughout the entire album, and that is To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah. Yeah, literally one of my favorite albums of all time. Actually, it's funny because whenever someone asks me what's my favorite album of all time, I've told you this, right? Like it in no particular order. Thriller by Michael Jackson, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye, and To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. One of the most critically acclaimed albums that there is of all time on numerous end-year lists, numerous Rolling Stone albums of all time lists. Like To Pimp a Butterfly, it I think really set him into a completely different like tier amongst his peers at that time, which is saying something because we had already had Good Kid, Mad City, which was like this huge commercially successful and critically acclaimed album, and then he comes out with To Pimp a Butterfly, which was even more critically acclaimed, not as commercially successful as Good Kid, Mad City, but still a very critically acclaimed album. And yeah, very, very, very impactful, especially for someone like me.
Yeah, what do you think the impact of that album had on society at the time? Because I know that that was during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. The Trayvon Martin murder just happened.
Yeah.
Michael Brown was just killed at the same time. So there was I do remember that time period, and when this album dropped, it felt like more than just music.
Yeah. I think because of where we were as a country, right? Like and one of the things I always say is like, I can only speak for myself. I was a senior in college, was getting ready to graduate, was still trying to figure life out. And so there were a lot of things and questions that I had that not going to say this album gave me the answer to specifically, but definitely helped kind of craft an answer for myself so that I could figure things out moving forward as a young black man in the United States of America. And so I think, from an impact perspective, you see it right still to this day. If there's a rally, there's a movement, all right is being chanted. We gonna be all right. I think they actually sung that song at the end of the 2024 presidential election for Kamala Harris. Like I think was the states were getting called in and it was very clear that she wasn't gonna win. All right starts playing at HU and at Howard University. And of course, all the Howard students are like, "We gonna be all right. We gonna be all right." So, like, I think from an impact perspective, it's a song or an album with songs, right, that are gonna stand the test of time. This album came out 11 years ago,
Hmm.
which in the fact that we're still right, still talking about it to this day is saying something. The fact that people are still going, whether it's a Black Lives Matter rally, whether it's a presidential campaign, people are still chanting his songs. I think that says something, right? Like that 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 shows the impact that it had. It shows the craftiness of the actual like song itself, and it shows just like the artistry that that man has when it comes to his work. Like, I mean, Kendrick, in my opinion, put everything he had into this album, and it's a direct reflection of who he is as a young black dude from Compton, or at the time, a young black dude from Compton. How old was he when this album came out? 28, 29, maybe?
I can look it up real quick.
I know he wasn't 30 yet. There's no way he was 30. Maybe he was 30. I'm going to say that. 27. Holy shit.
27 is pretty crazy.
Turning 28 that year. Yeah, that's crazy. And so then you have to think, right? The album was recorded from the year of 2012 to 2016 or 2015 when it was released. 2015, I think, is when it was released. So that means the dude would have been 25, 24 years old when he started going into this album and then released it when he was 27. Like that, I don't know. That's crazy to me to be that young, but yet that skilled and gifted with your wordsmanship. Because again, To Pimp a Butterfly is in my number one album of all time.
Yeah, and we've had discussions before on like I remember the conversation almost like it was yesterday. You described how you would listen to this album like on your way back home to college from like during spring break. And I guess I just wanted to dive like a little bit deeper into that, and I guess because it's a conceptual album and you got to listen to it from start to finish in order to hear the whole story. Like is that something you knew when you first started listening to it? Is that how you listened to the music when you first did, or was it just something where you just kind of because he had dropped a couple singles before that? Did you
Mhm.
like gravitate towards the singles first because they were good singles, or did you listen to the album from start to finish?
So it's so funny because the song you're right, it was on the way back from San Antonio, on the way to Huntsville, senior year of college. I had just got turned down from this internship at the state capitol. I don't know if you remember that, but like I
Mhm.
had been up for this internship. It was like the biggest thing on our campus if you were a political science major. Had been turned down maybe like 4 or 5 months previous. So I was just like, holy shit, what am I about to do now? Still wanted to go to law school, but didn't really have like a whole lot of necessarily guidance in what it was that I wanted to do. And then that Christmas, I want to say it was, I went home and he performed on the Stephen Colbert show, but he didn't perform any of the singles from this album. He performed, it was called Untitled at the time, but we didn't know that Untitled was going to be the like album that came after To Pimp a Butterfly, right? But the song that he performed was Untitled, and it's a song where he goes through and he's like, you know, what did the Asian say? A peace of mind. That's what the Asian said. I needed divine intervention was his religion. Now it's surprise. So like, I had known Kendrick from the Good Kid, Mad City shit, but I had never really sat and listened to Kid Kid, Mad City. I'd heard a few tracks off the album, but I didn't listen to it in the way that a conceptualized album should be listened to. So fast forward to that performance on the Stephen Colbert show, and I was just like, wait a minute, what in the world? Like this is the same dude that was swimming, rapping about swimming pools and I'm dying of thirst and all these other great hits from Good Kid, Mad City. But that untitled track was just the live version, not the single version from the album, which is just as good. But the live version that he performed on that Stephen Colbert show was just super phenomenal. Um, and I remember like looking at his work then. So I was just like, I got to go listen to Good Kid, Mad City. So I listened to Good Kid, Mad City on the way back home that Christmas, and was just like mind blown, right? Because it was a great album. It's him really talking about growing up in Compton, losing friends, things that like I had experienced as a young kid growing up on Section 8 housing, growing up with, just a mother who was in the system, a dad who was in the system, things of that nature. So I was like, what's his next piece of work? What there's obviously a reason we're on the Stephen Colbert show. What the hell's going on? And that's how I found out about To Pimp a Butterfly, was that was going to be his next work. It was coming out 3 months later. So I had already knew. I was like, okay. Um, I'm gonna listen to that probably around spring break time. I'll come home or I'll, wait till it's time to go home. And at the time I had a friend and I would not recommend doing this, obviously, driving while intoxicated, but um she was like, yo, you need to just pack a bowl, just pack something up. And on your way home, you should listen to Pimp a Butterfly. I think you would really like it. And I was just like, all right, Morgan, I got you. So getting in the car, getting ready to head back, and I put the album on, and because I had Googled it, I knew it was going to be a conceptualized album. So I knew that I had to listen from track one all the way to track 13 or 14, how many tracks there are on there. And I needed to listen in that specific order. Uh, and so Good Kid, Mad City, I would say, was really my first introduction. I mean, I had only listened to that maybe 2 or 3 months prior. That was my first introduction to this whole conceptualized album where you're telling a story, you're crafting a narrative, and in order for that narrative to be understood, you need to listen to each track in its entirety and fullness. And so yeah, bro, I popped in, or not popped in because it's not like it was a CD or anything, but like went to iTunes at the time and downloaded the whole album. And because I think that was right, is like we had just shifted from buying albums on iTunes to just being able to download stuff for free. Downloaded that whole album and then just literally got on the road. I can't even remember what roads I used to take. It was like Highway 12 or something to get back there, like all these back roads instead of taking I-10 to Houston, to get to Huntsville, Texas. But Yeah, from Wesley's Theory, literally all the way through You, all the way to the Black of the Berry, Complexion, like You Ain't Gotta Lie, through Mortal Man. Like I was just hooked. I remember every single song. I was like, what is this narrative? Why are we talking about like right coming into fame and all of this stuff and comparing it to slavery and what does Uncle Sam mean? And you're talking about, but I remember first time I heard You, right? And he's talking, or For Sale, not You, For Sale, and he's talking about Lucy and stuff. I was in college, so I'm thinking of like the drug Lucy,
Hmm.
like not an actual like individual. And so it wasn't until I heard it the second time through where I was like, oh, you're actually talking about like the devil and possibly right, like the industry representing this higher thing, and it literally trying to pimp you out, to like take and extract your talent and your artistry from you, and put that on a mass scale so they can make money from it. And yeah, this album, like it's crazy because I had listened and people always think I'm joking, but I'm like, I probably give To Pimp a Butterfly at least a full run through once a year. Like whether it's me getting on an airplane or me being on a long car ride, like at some point I'll be like, you know what? Let me pop the headphones in. Let's put on To Pimp a Butterfly and let me go back through, because it's just something that's so nostalgic about this album when I hear it, where I was at the time in life, and then just like that drive in general. Like I remember that drive being one of the best moments of my entire life because I was just listening to this album, and I was probably high as a kite too, so it probably helped.
So, given that you've listened to this album, I guess let's take it from your first time listening to it to all the times in between. To I know that you said that you were listening to the album on the way here today.
Yeah,
So, how does the album stand in comparison to the first time you listened to it to now? Do you feel like there's more that you've learned or more that you've come to appreciate the album for
most
what it is?
definitely, most definitely. And I guess too, right? You hear the album like differently because life has happened, right? So first time I heard this, I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have a kid, I didn't have apartment to my name, I didn't have. It was just me, my car, and some car insurance. That was all I owned. And now I go through the songs and I listen to them, and I'm just like, man, like you, even at that time, because I believe he was with. I don't know if that was his wife at the time, but Whitney, the woman who
Mhm.
ultimately, are they married? I don't know if they're married or not. Ultimately, that ultimately will become his lifelong partner. Either way, he had quite a lot that he was putting on the line. Like he had a woman, he had a family behind him, he had like all these people that were trying to prop him up, but like that shit could have went awry easily, right? Like how many superstars and celebrities do we see constantly where they've got the talent, they've got right the industry kind of behind them, but through some stupid itty bitty mistake or some big massive mistake, they fuck up their whole platform, right? They destroy their whole career. And with this man coming to Pimp a Butterfly, in my opinion, and talking about really like finding that fame, finding that place in the industry, he could have really fucked that up. Like when I think about it, like he could have gone awry.
Well, he talks about that throughout the album, like this self-destructive behavior that he's got, and criticizing himself, criticizing his community, and I guess that kind of leads me into my next sort of question. If is there anything that anyone outside of the Black community that you would hope that they take away from this album?
And I would hope that you take away from this album, um, someone outside of the Black community. Uh, I think
Because in
there's
my
a
opinion, this is like one of those albums that was made, and you and I have talked about this a lot, and you were probably the first person who actually brought this idea to me that this song was made for
yeah,
the
Black
Black
people.
community. It was
Yeah,
made for the culture. So
yeah.
like when I think of this album, it's something that I enjoy, but I don't know that I fully understand it the way that somebody like you would understand it. So what would you hope when somebody listens to this piece of art? Because he talks on a lot,
He does.
a lot of subjects. Racism is a huge subject in it. Money, power, fame, things that are self-destructive. What would you hope that somebody, not just me, but just anybody who's outside of
Anybody.
the black community, could take away from it.
But you know me, I love the politics behind everything. So like the politics in this album is something that I would hope that people, because he talks a lot about, what it means to be black in America, what it was like, growing up, not just for him in Compton, but for many of us growing up as young black kids in this country, and seeing counterparts maybe being able to engage in doing things that you're just never going to be allowed to be able to do because of simply the way that the world views you. Um, and so to me, if there was anything you were going to take from that or take from this album, not saying you specifically, but just like anybody outside of the community, is that understand, just like everybody else, we're human beings, right? At the end of the day. So like we love, we cry, we hurt, we go through all the same fucking emotions that the rest of y'all go through. But what Kendrick does so gracefully, in my opinion, in this album is he really puts forth that blackness and looks at it from an empowerment standpoint, right? We have hundreds of stories, albums, movies, pieces of art, right, that just play on black trauma. Um, and I shouldn't, maybe play on black trauma isn't good. That they talk about black trauma, but don't really necessarily always offer a light for it, in my opinion, right? And in this song, like one of the perfect, and I know we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but like one of the perfect con comparisons between songs is You and I, right? Like you listen to a song like You, which is a great song, but it's a hard listen to, right? Like, and it's him talking about many self-deprecating behaviors and things that he does that necessarily aren't the greatest thing. But then you compare that to something like right, where he's talking about the love that he has for himself, the love that he has for his culture, the love that he's experienced from other individuals within the culture. And so like all of that to say, if there's anything that you're going to take from this album, not you again, but anybody in particular, um, is that black people, we're just like the rest of y'all, but like, yes, there is that cultural empowerment aspect because we have to empower one another. We have to, right, like remind one another that while, yes, there's many traumatic elements of a black American here in the United States, there's also these great things that we've done that we've overcome. And so, yeah, I don't know. I said a whole lot, wasn't a whole lot of nothing, but
No, and I definitely don't think it was a whole lot of nothing. I think, you bring in like a good perspective,
yeah.
and, I don't, I don't want this to feel like a, like interviewee type, like where I'm just constantly
No,
asking you questions, but I do want to know, like, if someone really does understand this album, probably the way that you understand it, what does that say about their life experiences, in your opinion?
you probably have been through some shit, in my opinion. Then, if you
Yeah.
can, if you can listen to this on like a one or two go rounds, or even a few go rounds, and like truly be like, "Oh yeah, I felt that," like I felt when he was talking about institutionalized, and how institutions literally tell lies, and how those institutions are built to keep certain individuals back and down. Like you've probably gone through that, or someone that's gone through it, and you've observed it at a very close and high level. And whenever, like, to go back to the question of what do I think people can take from an album like this, that's what I would hope that you would take, right? Is like giving this album a listen through and understanding many of the complexities that he's talking about and how those have plagued certain individuals and demographics in the United States of America. Um, but yeah, if you listen to Pimp a Butterfly and because for me, like there were certain aspects of this that instantly when I heard like certain songs, right? Like Wesley's Theory, Not Paying Your Time. I was, 21 years old. I didn't really that shit didn't really mean anything to me. But, then I hear something like How Much Does a Dollar Cost? And a song that's just as simple as about a homeless man being represented by a higher entity or a higher being, and how we look at a dollar as being kind of minuscule in a sense, but it's not minuscule, right? Like the dollar bill itself, you don't want necessarily $1, but you want hundreds of dollars, you want thousands of dollars, you want millions of dollars. And that song literally, right, just like representing that an individual can have a spot somewhere and something could be for you, but that you can be stepping on your own blessing. And not to make it about religion or anything, but like us, that's literally what the song says, right? Is like you could have gave me this dollar, you would have had your spot in heaven, but because you're greedy and because right, you didn't feel the need to want to help your fellow man, you now just lost this spot. And to me, that's something that I think all of us can like, right? We've all
Hmm.
gone past a person that was in need or know somebody in our family that was in need and you kept moving or you were like, nah, my name's Bennett, I ain't in it. That doesn't concern me. But on the drive down here, that caused me to kind of like look at things a little differently too, where I was just like, man, I've been really fucking blessed in life. I worked very hard too, just like you have, right? Like we've been blessed, but also with that came a lot of hard work.
Hmm.
And so I think sometimes I'm just like, fuck, I can be a little selfish.
Yeah, I think when you grow up with the types of struggles that we've had growing up, I think that you do naturally have like a selfish behavior, and that's one of the things that he talks a lot on the song King Kunta is
Yeah.
like coming back to Compton, after everybody didn't believe in him, and coming back and basically just flexing on him. I can you know I can see
And
a
making it,
scenario where
right? Like,
everybody does something like that.
yeah,
Everybody wants to come back to their hometown when people doubted them and come back and say, "Look, I made it," and it was you had no part in it.
yeah. And just showing that he made it too, right? Like, I mean, like, in my opinion, is that a flex? Just coming back and showing motherfuckers what you got? Or like how you did for yourself? If it because
And
at the same time, Kendrick was bringing a lot of his homeboys with him, right? Like he was trying to lift them up and lift them out of the situations that they were in. When you hear that in Good Kid, Mad City, you hear it in this album. So that's where I'm like,
but it goes back to that original question that I asked you from the beginning. Like, if you escaped everything,
that's true.
but you still feel trapped inside your mind, are you really free?
That's true.
That's probably that to me is like one of the major themes of that song in particular. Is like he's escaped, but his mind is still there. Like,
Yeah,
because if your mind wasn't still there, there would be no reason to go back to
that's true.
Compton and say like, hey, I got to show these guys that I made it. Like, the thing is we've seen his work, progress up to the to Pimp a Butterfly album. He was already, world renowned artist at that point. So to go back during the to Pimp a Butterfly era and say like this is what I got, you know, I think that resonates with a lot of people because a lot of people would fall victim of that same mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there.
So this is going to probably be a tougher question for you than it is for me, but I want to know your top 3 songs from the album, which I know is going to be a little difficult, but if there were the 3 most impactful songs or the songs that you just don't think that you could have gone without listening to, what do those songs look like to you?
I'm gonna start with the easiest one. All right, because of the impact that that has had on the culture in general. One, two, it's a catchy fucking song. Like, I mean, like you hear that song, it sounds like a song that should be played. And it's one of the few songs on there that I feel like you listen to, and I'm like, oh, I hear this being played at the club, maybe until you get deep into the lyrics, and then which that point you're like, maybe not. But the beat itself, yes,
Well, do you remember when we were in Rolling Loud in Miami in 2022
yes, I do.
when that song came on?
Yes, I do. I
Energy shift.
the whole
Like
energy.
the whole energy of the entire place shifted and it was like, you know, it was impactful. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
especially because I remember that dude. I was just like, "All right, just be ready when the national anthem comes on." He was like, "What's the national anthem?" And I was just like, all right." And he was just like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be ready. We're gonna be ready. We're gonna be ready." And so, um, damn, I almost forget about that sometimes because I'm like, yeah, that whole mood, like they already had the little mosh pit area opened up, but then I just think I'm like, when All Right started playing, that was what, maybe like the 10th song, ninth song, because I don't feel like he played it late in the game. Like it was like midway through the set or like early in the set.
It was probably about midway through the set because I remember everything was like very, very chill. Like, hey, this is Kendrick's new album. This is the Mr. Morale and Big Steppers tour,
Yeah.
you know, that we saw. So there was obviously songs that were relevant on that album, but I remember there was like an energy shift when it was a backseat freestyle came on.
Oh yeah.
That's when everything
Yeah.
started shifting, and then it became more of like an experience than just Kendrick up there playing music. When that song came on, everything shifted, but then he kind of brought the tempo down a little bit
A little
again,
bit.
and then kicked it right back up
Back
with
to
All
All
Right,
Right.
and it was a super cool moment.
Yeah, and that's just such a, I don't know, that's such a song where I feel like you hear it and everyone immediately feels included. Like it, because I think back to Rolling Loud, we didn't, it was me, you, Ray there. We didn't know where the fuck Ray was at. So it was literally just me and you. I had already lost my shirt, so I was kind of feeling some type of way about that. But like,
And it was day 3, like
and it
we
was
were
day 3,
already
bro.
like,
We were. I'm not gonna say we. I was fucking hurting though. Like I'm just gonna be honest. I was kind of hurting.
we were
I wasn't
definitely some
showing it,
monks out there because
but I was hurting.
yeah.
But like I just think about when that song came on, how everybody like opened that little area up, the little mosh pit area up, and all of us started jumping in. But primarily, what I felt like was a lot of black dudes. It was like a lot of black dudes went in there, and we tried, whether you was unc status, cousin status, however fucking old you were, we all tried going in because that song I think just means so much to you when you hear it. Because again, at that time, we had Trayvon. We were still getting over Trayvon Martin. We had Michael Brown. We had all of these other people that were right being what seemed like unfairly right assaulted by members of certain police forces. And then you have this anthem or this song that becomes an anthem tied to this movement where it's like, no matter what y'all do, we're going to be fine. Like we've always been fine and we're going to continue to be fine. And in that moment in Rolling Loud, I always think back to it. I'm just like, it felt like because we were all coming out of COVID, remember we were still in COVID because like I got COVID after the fucking, we all did. We all got COVID after the fucking festival. But like, it felt like when that song came on, no matter what race you were, no matter what age you were, no matter what gender you were, everybody kind of looked around and was like, we're all on the same vibe right now. Everything's going to be all right. It sucks, yes, that we've got this national pandemic that's still going on. Sucks that we had to all take COVID tests and bullshit and stuff to get here. But like, we're here now and we're having a good time. We're having a great moment. And like, to me, when I think of that song, for a song to be able to mean that much to so many different people, to me just shows the impact that the song has.
Well, that song in particular was like a moment within Rolling Loud that I don't think either of us will ever forget. And that's not to take away anything that the other artist that during that festival,
because we saw some great fucking artists.
We saw some awesome artists, and you know, we saw some controversial stuff. Like, you know, remember Kid Cudi? Like the first night, people were throwing shit at him. Like he just walked off stage, and we were just like, what is going on here? Like, because we were already had like this mindset of like what Rolling Loud was. It was our first time going to Rolling Loud. The lineup was fucking insane. And
that was the year Kanye was supposed to be there, everybody. Just
Kanye was supposed to be
Kanye
there.
was the headliner.
So Kanye pulls out that same week and they replace him with Kid Cudi. And you and I were like, hey, we're going to have a good time no matter what. Kid Cudi's got some bangers. Like, we're going to have, you know, this is going to be a good time. Dude, as soon as he started his set, people started throwing shit at him, and we were like, "Oh man, that's like this isn't good." That's
because he paused, didn't he? He paused for a minute.
He stopped the show. He stopped the show and was like, "If y'all throw one more fucking thing at me, I'm walking off. I don't need this shit."
And someone threw something right at that moment.
Somebody threw something. Like, literally, I don't even think he got the full sentence out, and somebody like threw shit at him, and he just walked off. And we were all standing there like, is this really what's about to happen? Like, are we really, like, you know, the show just started, like the headline for Friday night just started. And we were like, so what the fuck do we do? Do we just like, do we walk out? And then everybody was so pissed that happened that it almost felt like it was like, not, I wouldn't call it like a riot, but everybody was like pushing towards the gate to try to get out of there. Like we jumped like a fence, like in order to, you know, to be able to get out. And the next thing you know, Kanye pulls the most fucking Kanye move of all time and fucking is on another stage.
With who? Who was
it? Was Lil Durk. It
Lil
was Lil
Durk,
Durk,
that's
and I
right.
wanted to see Lil Durk that night, but I was like, you know what, Kid Cudi's probably going to be the better performance. Let's just see who the headliner is because we were all excited. It was Kid Cudi, Future, Kendrick, like
Yeah.
banger lineup, dude.
Yeah.
And Kanye just pulls the most Kanye bullshit of all time and fucking ends up on another stage. Remember the speculation that he had like planted people in
To
the
throw
crowd
shit
to
at
throw
Cudi.
shit.
Yeah, at Kid Cudi. Because
Like
he came out like maybe 15 or 20 minutes. I remember because me and you started walking to the car.
we just
And
jumped the
then we
fence.
had just jumped the fence, made our way like right around the corner, and Ray calls. And Ray's like, Quan, where are you? Kanye's here. And I was like, Ray, get the fuck out of here. Kanye didn't show. And then that's when we started hearing people, and people were like, Kanye's here. Like they're saying Kanye's on stage and blah, blah, blah. I was like, this better be a fucking joke. Because that was the whole
That was the whole reason.
that was the whole reason I was going.
Yeah.
I was just like,
You're like, I've already seen
I've seen
Kendrick.
Kendrick.
I appreciated his performance, from the first tour, but I don't need to see him again. And I was like, I'd never seen Kendrick at that point, so I was like, that was who I wanted to see more than anybody. Kanye. I had a feeling that Kanye was going to pull some Kanye shit. Like
I
he'd
remember you
already
saying
pulled.
that, yeah.
Yeah, he had already pulled out of like Coachella that year. Like but he was going through like some real mental health shit at that time. Like that was during the.
I don't give a fuck. Not to be rude, if you're an artist and you tell me you're going to perform, you better perform. All right.
But the thing is, you don't get an artist like Kanye without having a little bit of crazy in there mixed in.
That's true.
Like
I wonder if
I'll
like,
take the good with the bad because you gave me to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. You're good.
and they had to have known because like Little Dirk like our Kid Cudi replaced him very quickly. Like we didn't wait weeks or anything to get like who the lineup for him was going to be once Kanye dropped out. It was like the next day or the 2 days later. They were like, Kid Cudi's replacing him.
We had plenty of criticisms of the Rolling Loud like festival in general because like we didn't get set lists, we didn't know what the map looked like, we didn't like it until it was literally like the day before. They were like, hey, by the way, here's the shit, and we were like, dude, come on, man. Like, so we were all ready, and then that shit happened with Kid Cudi on the first night, so we were like, dude, this has got to be like the fucking most thrown together ass music festival in the world. Ended up being one of the best experiences ever, though.
Who would have thought? We're gonna get back to Pimp Butterfly, I swear to God, but who would have thought that Soulja Boy of all people would have been like after Kendrick one of my like highlights because it felt like literally going back to high school.
Oh, dude, it was and he was on like a smaller stage too. He was on the same stage as Abra.
Yeah.
Like, and because I was super hype about Abra. I had to see her. We went and we had just missed the Bia,
That's
the
right.
Bia performance. So I know you really wanted to see her, but dude, we sat in what 3 or 4 hours worth of traffic in order to just get to the venue.
Never again. At least now we know. Now we know.
We thought we were like, oh, dude, we'll just leave an hour before we're supposed to.
Which for me, that's a lot of time. An hour beforehand, I was just like, that's plenty of time to get there. But remember that first day we sat in traffic right next to the stadium for an hour. Remember, we were like just trying to get off the highway into the.
We ended up just parking in some parking lot we weren't supposed to park in.
It was
because we were just like, there's no other option. We'll deal with the repercussions when we walk out of this
casino parking lot or some shit.
It was a casino, yeah. But apparently we weren't supposed to park there. But I mean, and just to give it context too, like we showed up like hours late. As we're walking in, there's like a guy who looks like he's OD'd, like right outside the gate.
He was a little drunk,
dude.
He was.
This dude was like thrown up all over himself. His chick was like sticking her fingers down his throat. Like there was
alcohol. He had alcohol poisoning, more than likely. At worst, on some type of drug.
I didn't see him the rest of the festival. Just heads up. Probably died. So that guy was in rough shape. I've never seen.
He was in,
I've never seen
in really
like
rough fucking shape.
Because we go to like music festivals that are more chill. Like that was our first like hip hop music festival. Like even at a hip hop like concert, like shit doesn't get that crazy.
No.
You're usually going to a venue somewhere. There's 1 or 2 performances, by artists, and then boom, the night is over. When we're walking in, we see like everybody's like trying to sell us something on the way in. We're like trying to dodge that. There's fucking people everywhere. there's a guy that's dead on the side of the fucking, on the sidewalk.
I always forget about the chick stuffing her fingers down his throat because that's what she was
That's
trying
what
to
I
make him
noticed the
throw up.
first, because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he took pills or something. He had to have taken pills, and she's like trying to get it out because, I mean, he just in his, I'm not trying to get too graphic, but his vomit looked like blood. Like he had like red shit all. He had like a white shirt, and it looked like
Could have been drinking red Gatorade, people. Could have been drinking
could
red
have
Gatorade.
been, or he could be on one of those fentanyl kill commercials. I don't know. Like,
oh god.
but going back to the album, you put All Right in there. What are your other two?
Fuck, I forgot that was a question. Okay, so I started with All Right, which is a staple. I don't feel like
Into the mic.
I don't feel like I can. Yeah, that's hard. That's like asking me my favorite fucking 3 Michael Jackson songs off of Thriller. Like, that's impossible. And I'm not, and I wouldn't fold on that either. I'd look at you and just be like, yeah, just pull the fucking gun or pull the bullet trigger because I don't have 3. I can't give you 3 top songs.
So you don't think that there's 3 songs from this album that just stand out a little bit more than the other ones? Like,
I mean, there are, like, for instance, would I say my top 3? Not necessarily, but like, Ain't Gotta Lie. You ain't gotta lie to kick it. I love that song because it's literally about just being who you are. It's literally like, and it goes through, in my opinion, so much of the black diaspora of, doesn't matter if you're a trash collector, if you're a lawyer, if you're a dude on the side of the street shooting like, you don't gotta lie in order to be one of us, right? Like, you can just be you and you're still gonna be allowed to kick it, showing that, right? Like, black people are multifaceted. So like, I could not imagine this album without that song on there. But would I say that's my top 3 favorite songs? Absolutely not. But I could not. It would be the same for like how much a dollar costs. Actually, I would probably put that in my top 3 because
see, we're getting somewhere.
That's a pretty impactful.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is like, so your top 3 right now, like, is I guess your top 3 11 years ago when this album dropped, almost to the date, is going to be different than what your top 3 is now.
I could have told you my top 3 back then. It would have been King Kunta, These Walls, and probably still All Right. Like, the bangers, the ones that were like, had me wanting to kind of get up and dance a little bit.
Those are like the most commercially,
successful songs probably off the album. So okay, All Right. How much does dollar cost? And then I'm gonna probably go with Complexion, and I'm gonna go with Complexion because of the whole Willie Lynch theory. And so like the whole idea behind that of you can separate and sow dissent amongst black people as long as like they have that dissension amongst themselves. So light skins and dark skins and so on and so forth, which, Arian thinks that I do not like light skinned people for some strange reason, which I find extremely ironic. But
every time you talk about Drake, it just feels like there's some animosity there. I'm not sure if
but I don't like
Drake
I don't like Drake. I don't dislike Drake because he's light skinned. I dislike Drake because Drake comes across as very like fake to me. So like not wholly authentic in the way that like I fucks with Cole hands down all day. I love Cole. Cole's mixed.
Yeah, Drake must have skipped Ain't Gotta Lie on the album or something. Like, he skipped right past that one. Because that's the thing is like he talks about this album. He talks about how this album in particular is the album where Kendrick's trying to free the slaves. Like, what do you, and I don't want to like derail this conversation away from Kendrick and what this project meant. But when you hear Drake say something like that and what this album meant for you all these years, what goes through your mind when he says some shit like that?
You didn't understand it. The album, like, and either you didn't listen to it, which I could totally understand. Drake's worth $500-something million. Like, that man probably didn't have time to sit down and listen to a whole hour and 19 minutes of someone else's album. But either you didn't listen to it or you did listen to it, and it proved my point. The album's not made for people like you. Like, it went right over your head and it skipped you because you don't necessarily come from the background of the individual that this album is intended for. And like I said, when we say black community, like I've met people that grow up in actual like that are black but didn't necessarily grow up around other black people. So they don't have that communal aspect. They don't know certain aspects of the black community where like maybe like jumping the broom or like what a hot comb smells like when it hits hair or like like curling like certain small shit that you would only know if you grew up in a black household. And that's not to say that like it's you're less than or you're more than or anything of that nature. It's just like, oh, you didn't come from that aspect. Just like I didn't come from, and I tell people that all the time. I grew up in San Antonio. You grew up in San Antonio, right? Like we don't come from Hispanic households, right? Like so there's aspects of the city and things that happened in San Antonio from like an overall municipality standpoint that truly weren't meant for us because we were not Hispanic. Could we partake? Fuck yeah, we could. And did we? A lot of times, yes. But it necessarily was that made with you and I in mind? Not necessarily. And that's okay in my opinion. Like that's more than okay. And so that's where for me, I'm like, for someone, if for someone like Drake to make a statement like that, I was not shocked whatsoever, right? Because like again, you don't come from this type of environment. You don't come from that necessarily type of struggle or background. So I don't expect you to 100% get it. Now, would I have made that fucking statement, even if I was biracial? Hell to the fucking no. Because immediately to me, you like slapped a whole subset of the population in the face. And not intentionally, but like you did it.
Well,
And
just like
so,
you said, like this album is a huge theme throughout it is empowerment,
yeah,
and you're diminishing that. You're taking away from that by just saying like, oh, you're just trying to free the slaves. Like,
yeah.
that's a
Which what the fuck
crazy
does that even
statement.
mean? What kind of like what type of music is someone making that you are trying to free the slaves? Like I don't even
Well, to me, that speaks on the fact that he's not like black empowerment is not on his priority list.
for Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this but also I mean I don't put it past him to not have listened to an album like this because it didn't have that commercial pop the way that Drake has always been the commercial pop rap guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and do you think that the conversations, or I guess not necessarily conversations, but the topics that Kendrick is talking about throughout this album is the reason why it wasn't commercially successful?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I say this all the time, and I heard this from someone else, so it's not my saying, but like white people want rhythm without the blues. So you want, yes, the feel good, bubblegum, poppy stuff, but you don't necessarily want the negative aspects that come along with that, right? So you want the beat of a King Kunta, but you don't want to have to be reminded that Kunta Kinte's legs were cut off in order to stop him, right, from running away or things of that nature, right? You want the feel good of an all right, but you don't necessarily want to be reminded of, oh shit, yeah, like there's a disparity between whites and blacks in the United States of America, and me just existing as a white person and partaking partially in that experience, right? Through no fault of my own, through no fault of your own whatsoever, but like that's the way that those institutions that lie have been built up in order for people to succeed and to go through. And so for me, that's where again, not like not shocked that that would go over some people's head, but it's the reason why, like, when I told you, I was like, I totally understand if a lot of white people are like, Damn is the better album. I like Damn because Damn has more bops on it. Even though Damn dives into a lot of the same fucking political shit that he does on here, it's just kind of masqueraded a little bit better, in my opinion. Whereas this is more raw. This is more stripped down. It's more like funkadelic in a sense. And so I don't think that that means necessarily that it comes from a malicious place or anything of that nature, but I could understand. I was about to try and make a comparison for me and like something that would be like white music, but I don't know what that necessarily would be, right? Like opera or something, but that's not white people. That's like fucking classists in my opinion.
In
Like
my
rich people listen
opinion,
to opera.
yeah, Taylor Swift is as white as it gets. Like,
Yeah, so it would be like a Taylor Swift album being made and you and I not necessarily understanding it, right? We're not teenage white girls that are going through a heartbreak in fucking the football stands on
Mhm.
senior night, right? Like I get that certain albums are made for certain people, and I think that's more than okay. Like I
Mhm.
think that's more than fine. But just going back to Mr. Graham, I do find it interesting that you're a biracial man and something like this would have like went over your head. A biracial man that got his start really in the rap game, which is very heavily influenced by black culture. Like that something like this would have went past you. That like you wouldn't have understood it or you wouldn't have got it. That not shocks me, but I am gonna say a little surprised.
I think the most surprising thing about it is Drake was on Good Kid, Mad City.
He
He
was.
was in Poetic Justice, and it was a super popular song at the time. And that's why I almost feel like what his comment about, you know, Kendrick trying to free the slaves is like disingenuous. Like he probably
Mm,
did. Like if I'm thinking about it, like from a competitive standpoint, if I'm Drake, I'm listening to everybody who's popping.
yeah.
Like as you know, I'm trying to, Drake is kind of known for being that guy who will sort of rip off somebody's flow or jack somebody's
Yeah.
style. Like, so I think if To Pimp a Butterfly would have been more commercially successful, I think you would have had Drake, emulating what it is that he had to say. You would have seen Drake coming out with, some kente cloth or some shit, trying to, probably,
Power to the people.
anything that he can do in order to make himself that much more money. That seems to be the motivating factor for him. But I'm also not in his shoes.
Yeah.
I'm not within his mind.
No, same. Same. And I mean, again, like to each their own, but I would just say again, if as a biracial man who primarily strikes me as biracially black, the fact that this went over your head or that you didn't understand it, that again, just doesn't shock me, but surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, a song like "You," which is in my top three.
Mm,
It's not necessarily the trying to look at it from a black perspective, but it's looking at it more of, hey, I recognize these self-destructive behaviors that I
yeah,
have. I feel like anybody can resonate with that, and
yeah,
that's one of the songs that resonated most with me in the album. Just because I know that I have self-destructive behavior, throughout my life. Even now, there's things that I'm actively working in order to, try to fix,
yeah,
and that's what I felt like that song was about.
yeah.
So
So
it,
you was your most, would
I
you
think
say is
that's
your
the most
most
impactful
impactful?
song for me on the album. But as far as like if I'm looking at the album as a whole, I think These Walls is one of the best songs in the
Beautiful.
album, just because that to me feels like the turning point of the
Yeah,
album. It starts off, it's a very fun, even though what he's saying in the song is not a fun topic to talk
yeah,
about, but the way that he does it is fun. And then as the song progresses, it gets pretty dark. He's talking about the the guy who killed his homeboy, and
yeah,
now he's hooking up with this chick, and
yeah,
it's pretty dark. And basically he's only able to do that because of who he is and the amount of fame that he's been able to amass.
that's some crazy shit though. Like imagine your homeboy getting smoked and then you just go smash the girl of the dude who smoked him.
It's the ultimate revenge.
Like that's got to be hard. And you're behind walls, so there's nothing that you can do.
Nothing
Like
you can
there's
do about it.
nothing.
You're just hearing about it.
Yeah,
It's pretty wild.
I'd cry myself to sleep tonight in that prison. Well, I wouldn't cry too loud in the prison cell, but I'd make sure to cry. That'd be some rough shit to go through.
Mm-hmm. But again, like, you the impact that you had on Kendrick's life by
Yeah,
taking out his homeboy, like, kind of deserve that shit.
yeah, you do, 100%.
And then my last song is obviously King Kunta. Like,
Another good track.
again, like it's one of those I don't know, this album I like sort of gravitated towards like the self-destructive behavior,
Hmm.
because I even feel like there's themes of that within that song.
Yeah, there is within King Kunta. It's a good song. It's primarily about, like, in my opinion, like just making it right, like getting. Yes, I've got to the fame, but now I'm coming home, and I'm gonna just stun on y'all for a little bit. Just
Hmm.
remind y'all, like, you didn't support me, or you didn't believe in the dream, or some of y'all was sitting here talking shit the whole time. But like, the king
Who,
is back, and
what man can't resonate with that?
well, exactly,
You
and
know what I mean?
that's where I'm like, and that was kind of to me the first time I heard him call himself a king, or
Hmm.
like crowning himself as like one of the kings in the
That's a
rap
good
game.
point. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, he really solidified himself as like one of the best artists. Because I mean, this was shortly after 2014 Forest Hills Drive too.
Yeah,
Like the year prior, J. Cole dropped, arguably one of the best rap
yeah,
albums ever. And then for Kendrick to come out and be like, that was good. Watch this. Fucking pretty wild.
yeah. And that's why, to me, again, like this album, because it incorporates so much politics, racism, like genderism, fucking classism, everything that it possibly can. Like, that's why we're still talking about 11 years. Like, there's certain albums that are going to stand the test of time. You always hear me talk about Thriller, best selling album of all time, critically acclaimed, 8 grand, all the shit that he got for it, right? But the reason that I literally tell people, I'm like, Thriller is a bop, because I remember when I would have been 11 years old, 10 years old, living in Jacksonville, Florida, listening to that album for the first time. And it was one of the first albums where I was like, I didn't skip a single song. Like every single fucking song I just heard on here, even the songs I didn't really care for or like, I was like, it was still good quality. Like this was a
Mhm.
good fucking song. And that was 11-year-old me. Every time I put on To Pimp a Butterfly, that's how I feel. And maybe it's because it's a conceptualized album. So I have to, and that's the way I listen to it still to this day, right? Like I don't put anything on a mix. Like I listen to that shit from Wesley's Theory all the way to Mortal Men. And so like I I don't know. I think even 10 years from now, we'll still be doing this shit. And I'm gonna be like, hey, it's the 20th anniversary of To Pimp a Butterfly. Let's go ahead and fucking reanalyze it and see what it's, because by that time I'll be 40 something, right?
Mhm.
So like the album will probably mean a little bit more, or mean something completely different to me. But like from an acclaim standpoint, I don't I would be interested to see who in the rap game has released anything next to this and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy that's gonna hold a candle. Like, and that's not to say there's not A plus albums. You just named one, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. It's tremendous, right? But like this, for me, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, for me, are like in those categories where they're by themselves, right? Like there's A, B, C, and then there's just that category of like those motherfuckers we're not gonna touch or talk about just yet because their shit was that far off. And that's where To Pimp a Butterfly stands for me.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a tough breakdown, if we went song for song with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and To Pimp a Butterfly. That would be an interesting episode.
And what's funny is now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't know who will win for me. I don't like I don't get me wrong, I fucking love this record. This is great. But and I'll be the first to admit, I hated My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy when it first came out because it
Mhm.
was so drastically different than 808 and Heartbreak. And you remember this, like we were listening to it and you're just like
We used to get into like heated debates.
debates. Yeah. Because it took me years. But to me, that also shows the makings of a true artist and genius. That motherfucker Kanye stuff was so drastically different. I feel like this is a completely different artist. I don't even know who the fuck this is. This isn't 808 and Heartbreak. This isn't Stronger,
Mhm.
College Dropout, anything like that. So like, but now I can easily say everybody that is one of the greatest album, like the greatest album of all time. Again, that with
It's
my other two.
so good. I can't wait for us to do like a breakdown of that because that's another album that we have personal ties to. Like
Yeah,
it's, that was, we were teenage kids at the time. You had just gotten your license. Like, we were finally able to run the city the way that we wanted to, that we had always talked about. And like, that album came out, and we went because even though you weren't fucking with the album, you were always playing it. Like
Yeah,
there was
I
certain
was.
songs that were on that album, and I've always loved the album, so I was always saying, I mean, this is back in the CD days too, like
Yeah.
where you know maybe there may have been like the aux cord back then, but I don't think so. Like not
Not
in the
unless you were
Regal.
some fucking
Like
rich kid with a brand new car did you have an aux cord in that
yeah,
motherfucker.
we were riding around in the Regal, and it was all CDs.
It was CDs, or you had that little fucking cassette
The
tape
cassette
that
that you could
had
plug
the
in,
aux thing that
and it
went
never
with it, and
worked.
it never. I was about to say that bitch barely worked, like barely, because I remember I had one for the for the Buick or whatever, and it never worked. But yeah, these were. I mean, these were doing the days of CDs, and like to your point, we popped that bitch in because don't get me wrong, even though I wasn't fucking with the album really, there were still, to your point, singles on there that I'm like Power. Great, like great single, like freaking
You
all
were
the
always
lights,
you
like
were always like so obsessed with "I'm So Appalled" for some reason, and I always
bro,
felt
to
like that was
this
like
fucking day that
yeah,
song goes hard.
uh,
Everybody's fucking rolling that song goes hard.
yeah. See, that's the one song on the album where I'm like, that's probably my one skip. Like that's what,
Really?
yeah. I don't know what it is. Like there's so many good songs on that album, and that's just one that
That's
I'm
one of
like could have done without that
that
one.
may have been one of Jay's best fucking verses from the 2010 era.
But
Like,
that's the thing is like you know this about
yeah,
me.
you're
Like
not
I've
a yeah,
never really given Jay-Z his flowers. Like I've never
yeah.
really thought he was that talented of an artist. You know,
It's just crazy to me.
we'll get into it on a different episode, but it's just you know, I've got hot takes on Tupac and Biggie too. Like that's the thing is like
Well, that's different because we're not from that era necessarily. So, like, I can understand. Like, people always look at me and they're like, "Pac and Biggie aren't your greats." I'm like, I was born in '93. Like, in what world are Pac and Biggie gonna be in my Mount Rushmore of
listen,
rappers? Like,
I don't think the time frame in which you grew up matters. I think that what really because if you were to ask me who my favorite rock artist is, there's nobody that's ever going to tell me anything different from Jim Morrison or Jimi Hendrix. Like
mm,
those are my two, and those are 60s.
yeah,
You know, 60s,
that's
early
true.
70s. So you know, I don't think that the time frame means anything. I think, and this is kind of contradictory to what I'm about to say, but the amount of time that you last within the industry, that's what shows your true work.
These
And those,
motherfuckers got their lives cut short.
I know, but you know, they may have, you know, it's,
You're like, that means nothing to me. That mean, you should have stayed alive.
I wish they would have stayed alive, but then again, we may have seen a completely different version of them because you knew how obsessed I was with Guns N' Roses, like
Yeah,
Axl Rose, and you know, as a teenager, and now, I mean, all the years of like drugs and you know,
yeah.
he's got a very distinct voice. Like you can't even tell it's him anymore. It's pretty sad to see. So, but
There are. I will say that there are, I think, sometimes benefits to going young. Um,
well, that's the ultimate conspiracy.
yeah.
Like when it comes to the music industry is that you get rid of an artist at their peak.
Oh yeah.
That way they don't have the opportunity to get back you know,
Like masters or whatever.
their
Yeah.
masters, like they don't have time to like sell out or go to a different record company or
Yeah.
in today's genre or you know, in today's world, you know, these guys are coming out and creating their own record companies.
Yeah.
You know, J. Cole did it with Dreamville and now Kendrick's done it with PG Lang, like, you know,
And a lot of people are doing their shit just like solo with
solo, yeah.
no record label behind them at all.
Which is better for the artist. You
Yeah.
know, they're definitely making more money. They have more creative control. But yeah, I mean, probably get into like that'd be a good discussion too. It's like the conspiracy of
Artists
I
that
wouldn't
die
even say
young.
it's a conspiracy, just the amount of untimely deaths within the music industry. It's pretty
Right. You
wild.
know, my favorite one. I'm always just like, y'all took my boy out literally as he was getting ready to do his big comeback tour. And y'all did that because y'all knew that y'all can make billions of dollars off of him in death as opposed to him being alive. Like, so there are certain artists that are worth more dead than they are alive. And so
Mm-hmm.
I believe that like from an industry standpoint, the industry only benefits where it's like, oh, Could we have Michael Jackson stay around and make maybe like 2 or 3 more albums that we know aren't gonna really sell as well as Thriller? Or can we benefit from this motherfucker going on to, the Blue Bayou, and instead hundreds of millions of people are gonna flock to
Mhm.
buy his DVDs and his CDs and T-shirts and all that other stupid shit.
Now they got a whole movie coming out about
Bro,
him,
I
right?
can't wait. I'm not gonna even fucking lie. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
I literally told Arian, I was like, me, you and I were going as a family. This whole fucking family is going to see the Michael movie.
Hell yeah, that'll be a good one. Well, I guess is there anything else that you want to talk about with the album?
I mean, I think we talked about most of it. The most critically acclaimed album of all time. My favorite album of all time. I think Kendrick went in his bag. He knew what he was doing when he went and made this. And I think, again, this is something that's going to stand the test of time. Like, long after we're gone and dead, when people are still talking about the 1001 greatest album, like, this will still be on that list somewhere.
Yeah, totally agree. But before we do wrap it up, remember I asked you at the beginning, and I wanted to try to get an answer, and it's probably something that I'll give you my take on it as well. But going back on the question, it's if you escaped everything but still felt trapped inside your mind, are you really free?
So I struggle with that because the question is, you feel trapped inside your mind, right? So, like, just because I feel something doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's truly happening, or that feeling is right. I have to tell Anaya that all the time. I'm just like, I want to validate your feelings, sweetie, and I get that, but that doesn't make you right, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're right to feel how you feel, but you're not right in this current situation. Having said that, to answer the question, no, to me, right? Like, if I'm looking at it on just face value, if I still have mental walls placed up in my inner psyche, and there's a psychological block there, then no, I'm not free, in my opinion. Like, I'm still going to be bound to whatever those psychological walls are, like, holding in. And so it's interesting because, to tie that to this album, would I say that Kendrick was free by the end from the beginning? In a sense, yeah, because I think he knew a little bit more of who he was as an individual. I think he knew what his calling was in this world as an individual and as an artist. And so that's freeing in a sense. But, like, then I think about Damn, I think about Mr. Around the Big Steppers. And I'm like, you still engage in some of those self-destructing tendencies, like, right? Like, you finally came out and told us some of the more, like, real shit that you get up to and do in your free time. So, like,
Yeah, because for me, there's really only one question within that question. It's a statement followed by a question.
yeah,
So, what does it mean to be free? Like that's really the real question there. So, like
that's a good point.
everybody is always going to be dealing with something. Everybody is always going to be trapped within their mind, whether you're trapped in there with good thoughts or with bad thoughts or everything in between. You're like, there is no escaping that little voice within your head.
Yeah.
So is it something that you've learned to manage and you find healthy ways to be able to um either distraction is what I think you see a lot happening nowadays. I think people use social media as a way to feel free, not really realizing that it is what's keeping them within a cage.
Yeah.
But the real question there is, are you free? And I think that you being trapped inside your own mind doesn't necessarily mean that you're trapped for the worst.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? Like,
It does, to an extent.
but I don't know. That's probably going to be a question that I'm going to be
Thinking about
grappling
for a little
with for
bit.
the next couple weeks, trying to find an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
I appreciate you giving me some insight on this album. I've listened to it, probably not as much as you, but I've, it's been in my playlist for years, and I've always appreciated, but I feel like every time we have a discussion about the album, I find a deeper level of appreciation for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm always here. I'm always happy to, and listen, I will always be happy to talk about the butterfly. So that's where I'm like,
That's the other
this
cool
is,
thing. It's always going to be here.
yeah, it's always going to be here.
But yeah. So I guess that'll wrap it up for this episode. If there's any artist or albums that you'd like us to dive a little bit deeper into and have like a better understanding of, just go ahead and shoot us a comment, and we'll get around to it. I do think that we're going to touch on probably a less conventional album on our next episode, and really excited about that one too.
Yeah.
All right, thanks guys.